St. Paul, the Fan.
All righty, into the final hour of the 2 days of Combine coverage, and welcome back to Indianapolis. Paul Allen, Pete Bursich, Gabe Henderson, and now we are joined by Ryan Grigson, Senior Vice President of Player Personnel for the Minnesota Vikings, also former General Manager of the Indianapolis Colts, and plenty of football to get into, but metaphorical covenant claps are due because I understand you have a son who played football at Hill Murray, who's heading to the University of Maine. Congratulations.
No. Thank you. Black Bears. Thank you. He overcame a lot. He's just got to get in the weight room.
Overcame his parenting.
He would tell you that. He would tell you that if you pulled him aside. He would have no problem telling you that.
What position?
Tight end.
Oh, so I'm assuming he'll have more touchdowns in college than you will, as far as receiving touchdowns. Because
I don't know. Right? He's going to be blocking a lot there. You know, okay. I was 2 for 2. I was 2 for 2 at Purdue.
Well, let me ask you:
2 touchdowns at Purdue you caught as an offensive lineman.
Yep.
Can you imagine if there was
actually I wore 84. I was actually a tight end.
Okay.
Air quotes.
Okay. Can you imagine if there was the transfer portal and NIL when you did that?
I would have loved it.
I mean, seriously, like the local whatever convenience store would have given you about $1,000 for a season. You would have tried to transfer to like Notre Dame
or La Bamba burrito. If they had paid me in burritos, I would have been
You'd have been driving a Corvette around campus like Jeff George.
I was always looking for a buck in college. You know how it is.
I'm sure it was tough to find.
You know, along those lines, what advice do you have? So you've been through it as a player, right? And now you're going through it as a parent. You're here every year to see these kids coming out of college. What advice do you have for parents out there that have kids that aspire to play college sports? Is there any magic formula, or is it up to them to get it done?
I think it's tougher even just for someone like that's been through the journey I have, because you have all this advice that's welled up in you that you want to,
dump on them.
And at the same time, you just have to really kind of just let it do your best. It's better with each child in my house to where I kind of, because my wife's right there always to be like, leave it alone, just let them.
Let them be.
Let them be. And they figure out what they want to do. And they figure, because to me, if you don't love this game, you should not play it. Like, even when they were going to play Pop Warner, like, I want them to wait till junior high. And I'm like, if they're around our ankles crying to play, then that means they're supposed to play. And Lukey was that one for us. And he ended up playing like in 3rd grade. But then, of course, all the other ones like, well, Luke's playing, so why can't I play? So they started early, and I did too. But once I learned I could play tackle football and go over to Griffith 2 towns over, it was awesome. Put on a helmet's special.
How do you turn off evaluation mode when watching your kids play sports?
Never. Never. It's a curse. It's a curse at a restaurant.
Do you watch the All-22 with him after games?
No, but I give him my iPad. I'm like, you got this technology right here, And it's funny, now the kids, it's like, Dad, I'm watching it right now. He's like on his phone. He's watching it on Huddle on his phone. So they have so many, mediums to look at their tape. Like, with when I was at Purdue, Pete, like you kind of went through a similar thing, like with a hard coaching back then. Like you'd have insomnia before you'd have, your film sessions.
Right.
And you'd get in there and you'd just be waiting for the shoe to drop, and it would be brutal.
Yep. Absolutely.
What were you looking at? Yeah.
You with all that being said, you see you can't turn it off. Do you find yourself, watching tennis on a night and evaluating athleticism?
No.
You ever seen somebody run across the street and been like, "Hey, here's my card"?
You just carry a stopwatch.
Little tight in the hips, but maybe not a knee bender.
I evaluate bad athletes all the time. Whether if I'm just walking on the street and like, there's no way that guy ever played, or like just someone's gait, you could tell if they have any looseness in their body, if they could run a route. Like that's the curse part of it. Like whether it's basketball, like I remember when
John Morant
was coming out of
McNeese State?
Murray.
Yep.
And we went to see Purdue play in a March Madness tournament in Connecticut with my whole family. And my son Noah, I think, he's at Mount Union, played quarterback in lacrosse, and he's kind of the one that's kind of, I think, got that feel about him with just players, and like he'll walk by if I'm watching tape like that guy can't run, why are you watching him, and then but like he was the first one. He's like, Dad, look at this guard, like this And honestly, before I'd ever heard the name, and then I started watching him. He's playing at Florida State, and just the movement skills. Yeah. You're like, man, it's like Iverson. Like, he could have been an exceptional corner. Just with the, I've always was taught from the beginning, like, it's a game of movement. So I always just match movement to successful players. And if they're a corner that maybe was a shade above 4'5", then you think of the Aqib Talibs, and guys like that. Like, I'm always trying to do comparisons, and that's how I try to get a lot of times to my final answer on a player is just having the recall and just matching those people and doing the comps.
Well, off what you said about, this guy can't run or this guy can't do that. In your business as player, vice president of player personnel or general manager, do the best evaluators see the positives? You know what I'm saying? See the positives first, as opposed to starting with the negatives.
I was taught, by Andy Reid, and I think he was taught through, Ron Wolf and that whole tree that I think, basically came from Al Davis was, tell me what a player can do versus what he can't. And I never, and I did that. I felt like I was on an island a lot as a scout, and maybe that's because I started in the Northeast and you have to be glass half full out there because there's not many schools. So, I was naturally kind of like that. I still am like that till this day. And I like to promote what a guy can do, because when I became a decision maker, I realized why Coach Reid was like that, because if you're the other way, then you're going to have a bare draft board. Yeah. You're going to have a first round, and then you're going to have nothing else, And that's something that's, I think, near and dear to my heart, and everyone knows it on our staff.
A wise man told me that a good scout knows the good restaurants in all these towns. Is that true? Would you agree with that? Because you're the one that told me.
Even like Howie Roseman with the Eagles has always said, like, you can tell a good evaluator by, who they marry, by who where they stay, where they eat, and I took it as a source of pride. Like, all it does is take it little extra legwork. Like, when you start having the internet, like, on your BlackBerry, and I'd go to Starkville, Mississippi, like, I would do my due diligence and be like, you can't stay anywhere but the Hampton here, or it's this old place, and you can't. And I would always find like a sweet little like student union that was just remodeled, or I would find a place to eat that, I remember when Stella just came out, the beer, I found a place that had Wagyu beef burgers and Stella on tap in Stark Vegas. So if you bust your hump a little bit, I think it's all connected.
Well, you started in coaching. You started out as a coach, and then went to scouting, which eventually led to personnel and general manager, stuff like that. Why'd you make the switch? Like, why'd you stop wanting to be a coach?
Well, I'm really kind of wired to be a coach. I love to coach. I love to coach the scouts. I love to give people examples of what I screwed up and what you need to do to not do what I did, and give examples of how I've hit on players and things like that. But it really was because of my back, and I had a couple discs as a player with the Lions, and I was such a kind of an animated, like the way that I coached was a lot of demonstration. So I'd hit a sled, I'd hit a bag, and I would, get in the duck position and like getting a quarter eagle, and then by the time the game came around, I was like wearing a brace and I would have to be on meds, and it got too hard. I mean, honestly, and I had a chance. Paul Alexander tried to hire me to the Bengals,
offensive line guy.
Yep, he tried hard. He drafted me, and it was crazy because it's what I wanted. And he offered me an offensive assistant job that would have basically been assistant O-line. The Princeton coach now, the head coach of Princeton, was the one that ended up taking the job because I had gotten the Southeast in my third year in St. Louis, which was a big deal to a scout. And I was just like, I like this too much. And I never knew I would love the road so much. And you have to be disciplined because you have to drive a lot and type a lot of reports and have to be on it.
It's not glamorous. No. That's the one thing. The life of a scout is not glamorous.
It's lonely.
At all.
It's lonely.
And I managed to stay out of the building, and even in Philly, even when I was director of player personnel, like, they didn't even ask. They just knew, like, I loved the road, and they liked that about me, that they could trust my eyes and ears on the road and just get that feel. Because you have to have a feel out there. Like, you could be in a press box and hear somebody talking about some guy at, St. Augustine College, in Raleigh, and You're like, hey, let me look this guy up. He's 6'0", 5'5", 240, and he's got a 4.6, verified speed in the system. Like, I'm hitting there after I hit NC State, or I might bug out of NC State if I don't like anybody and get there real quick.
I mean, when you think of coaching, the first thing I think of is developing guys. And then when you look at, being a scout or being someone from that front office realm, you think of the evaluation part of it. How does that mesh in your role?
Well, the evaluation part of it is, again, it's such a hard thing to do to quantify a human being, I think, because there's so many layers to a person. You don't know what they're going through in their life. You don't know if their girlfriend dumped them. You don't know if they've got an injury that maybe is there's so many different layers. I just feel like from an evaluation perspective, the simplistic way to do it is lean off of your mistakes, your hits and your misses, having a good Rolodex of that, and really focusing on the film and the movement. Like, guys have to look like they have to move like they move in the NFL.
Yeah.
If you see a guy that's all world, even at a Power 5, and he's really stiff, well, he better have some really strong compensating factors, whether it's elite size, toughness, and mental, to overcome that lack of movement. Because the league now is just a bounty of athletes, really high-end athletes, especially on defense.
Ryan Grigson, Senior Vice President of Player Personnel for the Minnesota Vikings. And, before we get into some scenarios that are transpiring now, you mentioned those Rams days. And, I mean, you caught the Rams at an awesome time, greatest show on turf time. Yeah. But right before that in 98, you worked as a scout for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Yeah. So how does one scout that? Do you go to Clemson and say, hey, Coach Sweeney, who are the bottom 35 players on your roster, and can I meet with them all?
No, what you do is I scouted the Cheese League, and back then there was Jacksonville was in Wisconsin, New Orleans was in lacrosse. There were 6 teams there, and I went down to I scouted the Bengals. I scouted about 10 teams for them in the preseason, and that's where you would meet with a pro director. And he would kind of go over the roster with you and give you the bubble guys. And then you sit and watch film of the practices of the bubble guys. Like two very interesting names. I don't know if I ever told you this before, but when I went through, I got the job with the Rams because of just going through Rams camp in Macomb, Illinois, or Western Illinois is. And I had met Charlie Army and met the people there. And 2 bubble names they gave me, honest to God, it was Kurt Warner and London Fletcher.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah.
London undersized.
Yeah.
Wow. What a stud.
Yeah. Started 15 straight seasons. He had 202 tackles at John Carroll and played basketball there.
John Carroll, right?
Points.
Yeah.
And then Kurt was interesting about that was he was battling it out for the 3rd spot with Will Fuhrer, who was kind of a pet cat to Coach Vermeil, and they kind of said that he would have a hard time overcoming that, like that he had somebody already there in the system, and that's what you want, in your 3rd guy, someone that can go in and at least not screw it up, and sure enough, he made the team, and then the next year he's MVP, and that's why I feel like once people know my background, they know why I don't discriminate on the Arena League. I worked in it, CFL, I worked in it, and NAIA football. Because I'd always been in those leagues, and I'd been like, that guy looks like he could have played, could have been with me in camp in Detroit or Cincinnati. So I have an open mind to it.
What did you think of the linebacker corps from the late 90s at Notre Dame when you were
they had
Purdue?
the squatty guy with a big neck roll.
Yeah. And Flutie tore him up in the Boston College game.
He was pretty stiff, but he was a straight line guy that he'd knock your teeth out if you didn't have your pad level down.
Then he'd tell you about it.
He was a tough Chicago guy, or kind of Chicago. Yeah.
Well, I'm not big on, like Harold Baby Jordan Minor. Okay, remember him, basketball player, USC. Yeah. All right, Baby Jordan. All right, Air Jordan, Michael Jordan comparison. It's just, when players come into leagues, that's just to get a tag put on you like that stuff. So I'm not drawing a London Fletcher related comparison here, but tell me Ivan Pace did not play a little bit like London Fletcher to a certain extent with the way he performed last year.
He is a great football player. He's super instinctive. He's atypical, though. His body type is atypical, and just the way that he can slip blocks, and just how that's the position, Pete, that because I was with Stephen Boyd and Chris Spielman at Detroit, and they weren't burners. But if you have a half a step or a step on somebody because of the way you see the game, and when the ball's snapped or pre-snap, you got to jump on it, and you'll actually be faster play speed than someone else who's even faster than you. So that's how I look at it. And the thing about, Ivan was our coaching staff did a really great job of digging their heels in on him, because we were going to think of going a little bit bigger. And that's something I try to preach. And it's one thing that Kwesi's cool about me trying to espouse on the staff is just, if you don't have conviction, we won't know, who you like. You could spend all these hours on the road, or the staff could watch, but if you don't speak up and we don't feel your conviction, then how can we make the right decision? Because we might be making a mistake if you don't speak up. So, Mike Saravo and Flo, they're like, no, man, listen, we gotta look at pace, and it sure as heck worked out. So, we liked him. He was awesome at the Senior Bowl. But of course, obviously he didn't get drafted because people overlooked him due to his stature.
Right.
Period. And now we have a great player that was a CFA that should obviously have been a high pick.
Hit like a freight train.
Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah both spoke on this radio show and at their press conferences just yesterday rather extensively about Kirk Cousins and just kind of what the situation is. Yeah, we want him back. Hopefully it works out, blah, blah, blah. Now, doing what you do, Senior Vice President, Player Personnel, right-hand man to the GM, until that situation solves itself, how difficult is it to move forward with what next proverbial shoe will drop?
That's such a good question, and it's so true. But Kwesi is really good with, and I wasn't able to do this to the level he does, is just having scenarios across the board and us looking at those scenarios. If X happens, what will Y look like? And that's something that has been really good to see for me, because then you actually work through these scenarios, and then you're like, okay, how do I feel about this happening? Yeah. And then you extrapolate things, just actual feeling from it, and then it seems everyone feels really good if this happens.
Yeah. So then
you're prepared, because right now, like you said, it's murky until something actually happens, and then you can set the wheels in motion with the whole roster. Mm-hmm. So it's a little, the limbo thing is a little unsettling, but once we've spent so much time meeting as a staff, and and KO, he's a trooper. He sits through our meetings, and and Kwesi's always in there, and ownership is sometimes in there, and it's good because I feel like we've communicated and talked so much about so many different angles that I think we'll be prepared in a moment's notice.
You're terrific, brother. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. You guys are cool.
And welcome back,
Pete.
man. Welcome back. It's good to have you back in Indy. Ryan Grigson, former general manager of the Indianapolis Colts, currently the senior vice president of player personnel for the Minnesota Vikings. All right, into the penultimate 2 segments to go, Combine 2024. Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com, joins us next from Indianapolis.
KFAN, The Fan.
Oh, looky here. It's Mike Florio from ProFootballTalk.com.
Keep your hands to yourself.
The preferred National Football League website.
I will hurt you.
9 to noon.
Just get used to it.
The country, the world, and the universe. And he's an author, of course, Father of Mine, and a couple other books, too.
Boy, we don't have the rejoin today.
With the phone that you're looking at now, it's the beauty of being in Indianapolis because everybody, has their heads in their phones most of the time, period. But in Indianapolis, it's easy to justify. Why are you looking at your phone so much? Now I got stuff going on.
Trades. You know why I do it? I do it when I walk through here. I figure if I'm looking at my phone, nobody's going to come up to me and say, "Hey, can you come do my show?"
Yeah.
It didn't work with you.
Well, no, I've seen. I've seen the Florio ProFootballTalk.com radio tour today. You're bouncing all over the place, man. Or was
Not
it
really.
just one?
Just a couple. I appreciate your attempt to negotiate a better appearance fee for me.
That was the best. I was giving you my very best, but they said no.
I think the best pitch you can make is that you insist that they pay me the exact same amount that you pay me.
Correct.
Can I have this pen?
Correct. You can have the pen. Will Sheedy here on the camera. He's going to give you his Vikings Combine vest.
What is VEN?
Vikings Entertainment Network.
VEN,
and over there we have the 10, the Titans Entertainment Network, and the SEN, the Steelers Entertainment Network.
Really? I can't have this? Can I have
this?
this?
Of course you can.
All right, good.
You can have whatever you want.
It's a right-handed pen, though.
Oh, well, then I can't take it.
PFT, yeah, any Cousins team? I mean, you can watch this at ProFootballTalk.com. I watched it last night. Kevin O'Connell with Chris Sims and Mike Florio. Anything new to advance the ball with the Cousins?
Well, I thought that Kevin O'Connell was as clear as I've heard him on, number one, they want to keep Kirk Cousins. My assessment of the situation is they have a number that they are willing to extend, and that if Kirk Cousins is able to find anything else that he likes better, he is free to take it.
Yeah.
And they are very clear-eyed about it. They are very confident. They use the phrase, Kevin did a couple of times, he has earned the right to bet on himself.
Yep.
And they believe that when the time comes for him to go, see what else is out there, he will learn that whatever else is out there is not better, that the grass will not be greener in Atlanta or Las Vegas or
Pittsburgh.
back in Washington. I don't think Pittsburgh, some people I was talking to last night, they really are going to do this Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph thing. As crazy as it sounds, that I get the impression is what they're going to do.
Well, with Kirk, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but your last question was with O'Connell about Kirk was, so you 100% are saying you want Kirk Cousins as your quarterback.
And he
next
said
year.
100% yes, I do.
Right, that was awesome. But now you mentioned that with Pittsburgh, and I hadn't thought of that or heard that. Well, if Justin Fields gets traded to Atlanta, which I would make them favored, well, I mean...
They're heavy betting favorites. Atlanta, like minus 120.
Yeah, so much so DraftKings took it off the board. They were getting so much money on Fields to Atlanta.
Or
so
they know something.
Right.
Or
yeah.
They think that the bettors know something.
Right,
See,
correct.
it's okay for them to know.
Yeah.
When the bettors know, that's when we take it off the board.
All right, well, old Kirko, I mean, if Justin goes there and Pittsburgh wants to do this thing, okay, you
Pittsburgh
said Vegas.
well,
He's going to run out of options.
Right. And I think that's what they count on. Look, when he was a free agent 6 years ago, 29, and healthy, it was the Vikings and the Jets. That's it. There were two teams, Vikings and the Jets. So now he's 35, coming off a torn Achilles tendon, and once you popped one, you're more likely to pop the other one.
Really?
And who's going to be out there?
Yeah.
So, and from his perspective, and I hope the Vikings don't overplay this. I hope they haven't underestimated his willingness to pack up his family and leave. But the idea that he's got the two kids and they're in school and they like their school and they like where they live, you got to be careful there, because it would be foolish to assume that Kirk and Julie Cousins haven't already scoped out everything that they would be doing in Atlanta, including the school. Like, I'm in a position where I get all sorts of crazy tips from people.
Yeah, well, they absolutely have.
Some of the tips I've gotten is they've already been down there and they know exactly where the kids go to school. If Atlanta is the place, and
Kirk's father lives in Orlando, is a preacher down there.
I mean,
doing their due diligence.
Yeah, Julie Cousins' parents are Alpharetta, and she grew up there. So if they go Justin Fields, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
And I got the impression from hearing Raheem Morris, the new head coach of the Falcons yesterday, that it is going to be Justin Fields.
Right. And Courtney Cronin, who covers them for ESPN, she was with us earlier, and she thinks it's going to happen soon. Maybe not Atlanta, but probably Atlanta. But like when that DraftKings thing came off, because they're obviously getting too much action on one side, and they want to put a different number up to even out that action. It's the metaphorical writings on the wall.
I was going to say Daniil Hunter, right? Maybe not as popular as the quarterbacks are, but for us, huge part of our defense and what Flores was able to do. Anything on him or any thoughts on Daniil? We're worried he's going to be going to Chicago, or that the Bears are in a situation where they can add another pass rusher.
Or the Lions.
They've got the cash. The Lions keep him in the same
If
division.
you're the Lions or Bears, wouldn't you absolutely chase him to pilfer a division team and make yourself better?
Daniil Hunter is one of the most underrated defensive players of the last decade. He kind of fell off the radar screen that year. He had the neck surgery, but I would like to think the Vikings find a way to keep him, but that's part of the game. You make your division rival worse, you make yourself better. That's why I think if the Chiefs let Chris Jones get anywhere near the market, if I'm Jim Harbaugh, I remember when free agency and the salary cap first came into being, when the Cowboys had their dynasty, and it felt like other teams were committed to dismantling the Cowboys via free agency, and they would overpay to get this guy and take this guy and take this guy. I don't get that same vibe now. Why wouldn't you be doing everything you can to just weaken the Chiefs? Because if they lose Chris Jones, it's not like you can say, we'll reconfigure our defense the way they reconfigured their offense without Tyreek Hill. You take that guy who is a disruptive force, a wrecking ball in the middle, all of a sudden the defense, which carried the team in many respects this year, is no longer that strength, and it makes it harder for them to do what they're trying to do, which is win 3 in a row. First team ever to win 3 in a row. If they have Chris Jones, it's a lot easier.
Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com, deep stretch, Combine Day 2, Peter.
Anything else from a free agent standpoint? The Vikings are, with the quarterback situation and the plethora of quarterbacks that are coming out this year. You have Kevin O'Connell as a quarterback coach. How off the radar would it be for the Vikings to go ahead and grab one of these young guys? And even if you sign Kirk, let him sit for a year.
And take it a step farther.
But have a plan. Go ahead.
Take it a step farther. Josh McCown just hired his quarterbacks coach. Well, he coached
Drake May.
Thank you. I mean, it's like Drake May to the Vikings. If you thought it was a 0 for whatever the reason, I mean, it might not be a 10% or higher, but it's not a 0 anymore,
And Josh and Kirk have the same agent, too. I don't know how much that is relevant to the conversation at all. But, yeah, what's the plan? Because I feel like, before we saw the improvement from Kirk last year, culminating in the Monday night game against the 49ers, I felt like the Vikings' plan was get through one more year and then draft young quarterback with the hopes that he becomes the next franchise guy. Really, since Fran Tarkenton, they thought they were getting it with Dante Culpepper. He had that horrible knee injury October 2005.
Yeah.
Charlotte. The torn 3 knee ligament trifecta. Because he had 2004, one of the all-time great quarterback seasons at the time.
Second behind Manning for MVP.
Yeah. They I think, thought this year would be the year they make a move. And, if we're finishing the top 3 of the draft order, we were bad, but now we're in a position where we can get that guy. So that's why the Justin Jefferson thing continues for me to be intriguing, because
it's not
until they sign.
Sorry.
Until they look, hey Paul, until they do it, there's a possibility. And they've traded Randy Moss. They've traded Stephon Diggs. They traded Percy Harvin when they said they have no intent to trade Percy Harvin. I got Kevin to say yesterday he has no intent to trade Justin Jefferson. I don't think he understood the bit.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I don't think he did.
Well, you referenced Percy, too.
I know, but he still said it, and it's like, but that's exactly what Rick said. And Rick was right over there when he said it.
Let me say this, though. Having been on the staff when we did make that trade with Randy Moss and Dante, it was basically you had – the two of them put everybody in a position where we had to choose between one of the two.
Wow!
And they chose Dante.
And we got Napoleon Harris. I mean, what?
Well, I'm just saying the reason.
And
they
Troy
got
Williamson.
Was,
all right. So
how'd that turn out?
I know you have to leave because I see that table set up over there. Are you signing and selling Father of Mine here at the Combine? That table with the big sign.
What sign? What are you talking about?
I'm just playing around
what
with you.
Got?
It's a brilliant book selling opportunity here.
Legal here in Indianapolis. Yeah, I'm gonna. Although it is funny, I smell it everywhere.
You do?
Sims is an aficionado, and it's
Bursic.
like, is it legal here? And he's like, no, but I don't think anybody seems to care. Like that wall's been broken down everywhere.
Oh, it's a rare opportunity to do that and taste that St. Elmo's shrimp cocktail sauce.
Overrated.
You think so?
Overrated.
Yep. Good seeing you.
Good seeing you, boy. You're really running me off.
Appreciate
no, maybe you'll talk to me next week if I have time for you next week.
Okay, fair.
All right.
Like you. Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com. We put a wrap on the show around the corner from the Indianapolis Scouting Combine. You're Thank heavens at Courtney Cronin's event last night, you were the first person I saw, Tatum, ever when I rolled in there, because I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, so who am I going to talk to? And then I just saw this Cody Alexander guy, and I'm like...
he was the first man that walked in.
Standing against, by himself against a pillar with 38 women who work in the NFL or for teams or whatever, and I looked at him and I'm like... I don't know you and you don't know me, but we're about to get to know each other real well because we're going to be hanging out. But then I saw you, and thanks for welcoming me into the event last night. That was fun.
It is fun, and you got to meet some pretty cool women who cover the NFL.
Big time.
Who even women that cover the NFC North, which I know could be really good contributors to the show, and I'm excited for you to be able to book them and have them
100%.
on, which is really exciting. For
lady named Carmen Vitale. Chatted with her for 15 minutes, and
she's fantastic.
She does the NFC North. despite
Fox
living in
Sports.
California. And she's going to be on the radio show next week. So
let's go.
Yeah, the
Carmen's great. You're
networking
gonna
part
love
of it, the Catherine Terrell, I monopolized her time for 30 minutes talking about horse racing. Didn't know how much she was into it as a Louisiana native, fairgrounds and Louisiana Downs, Delta Downs, stuff like that. But Tatum Everett, Vikings Entertainment Network, Vikings.com. What have you guys accomplished today? People can watch, and what are you working on before you leave?
I think I said this, I might have mentioned this yesterday. I'm really excited about some of the new names not new names, but just different names and perspectives that we're getting. Adam Kaplan just spoke with us for a hot second about the NFL, and obviously he's been in the business for years. This is his 23rd combine. NFL Insider, now works for Pro Football Network, and he's just a wealth of information, has just been doing this job for so long. We chatted with Charles Davis, who is just a lovely human being. He is exactly the same person he is that you see him when you on screen. He's always just have a wonderful rest of your day. I kind of wish he could read me a book. Read your articles. Have an Audible book of all the articles he writes or whatever, just so I can listen to him because he's just so friendly. And so he provided his draft analysis. He was down in Mobile, Alabama with the Senior Bowl, covering it from that perspective for the NFL Network. And so he gave a lot of names I think Vikings fans would probably want to listen to and look for when they're ready to watch the Combine this weekend.
What road did he specifically go down? Was he Vikings quarterback, Vikings this?
No, we talked about a lot of different options. He does think that the edge is going to be a really, really big need for the Vikings.
Yep.
There's a guy, and I'm going to butcher his name, so I'm just going to say it's the one out of UCLA that he's looking at.
Oh, the Lilu, or
something like
Oh, the guy with the 4 ACLs.
It's Talu, or something like that.
Yeah. So he likes him. He thinks he'd be a really good fit with Brian Flores. He thinks the Brian Flores hire was just absolutely phenomenal. Keeping him on was even more pivotal.
Yeah.
He mentioned that offensive tackle is a position that's going to be really deep in this draft. Obviously, wide receiver is always really deep in these draft. After what we see in college and the way that offenses are being played in college, it's always a lot of pro-ready wide receivers. So I think that, offensive tackle, edge, and he still thinks, maybe a QB. So.
If not there, then you don't forget about the cornerback position.
What's that too. What's really interesting is
we got some steam on a Toledo guy.
I know.
Oh yeah, no, he's
Quentin something.
Quinion Mitchell.
Quinion Mitchell.
That's what it is.
He popped off at the Senior Bowl, and Charles said he would be ready to take it 11.
Wow.
That he played like he could be a number 11 draft pick this year at the Senior Bowl, and so I think the thing he said was, there were so many concerns about him not playing top talent per se, and so that's what they really wanted to see from him in the Senior Bowl, and he was very physical, and obviously we know that Brian Flores loves a good physical, speedy cornerback.
Mm-hmm. Were you surprised at all with how? I mean, you've been around Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell for a while. How that was probably the most forthright they've been with the media, with us yesterday.
They were awesome.
And just kind of saying, we're not trading JJ. Where that started, we don't know, but we're ending it. And then just you have so much I think we have so much a better picture of what's going on with the quarterback position now.
Agreed.
And we're not, are we used to that? I'm not used to that, but they've kind of turned the leaf in that respect, don't you think?
Yeah, well, I think because as we've talked, people are just writing and supposing and throwing out these narratives that were just, maybe I think they felt were false and there's no way they were true. So this is a really good platform for them to say, no way. And I kind of alluded to that yesterday a little bit before they went on. But,
great working with you out here.
As you guys as
Thanks
well.
for everything.
Pete, great being out here
you guys
again.
are awesome.
Huh?
It's awesome.
Wasn't that fun?
Yeah.
Your first combine on the radio?
Yeah. It's fantastic.
You going to come back?
Hopefully.
It's the best way to come through the combine.
Yeah.
We want to thank Eric Nordquist, the producer of 9 to Noon, Curly Harris, and the Vikings Entertainment Network staff, and, of course, Gabe Henderson and Tatum Everett. And I'm Paul Allen. Combine 24 has come to a conclusion. Have a great day.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN